Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And we have these live streams on a regular basis for in-depth talk and analysis and open space for the community as well for participation. I also post videos on a regular basis if you prefer shorter videos. Usually our live streams are about an hour or so long, sometimes longer, sometimes a bit shorter. In this live stream, and of course we will be talking about multiple topics, and then I will open the space up for all of you after I speak about the topics that I want to talk to you about. I wanted to share a couple of updates with you when it comes to Yemen. Firstly, we had a revelation from Ansarullah. They revealed the missile that they used yesterday. Then we had a message from the Hamas leader, Yahya Sinwar, to Ansarullah. And he also sent a generic message as well that we haven't had all of the details revealed of that message, but snippets of it, well, at least so far. And I wanted to talk to you about two more things. One of them was Israel's modern slavery, using people who are asylum seekers from Africa and blackmail, basically, extortion. They're telling them, come, go and fight for the army, go and fight in our genocide, come join the most moral army in the world, and we will settle your situation. They didn't promise them they will give them full Israeli citizenship, but they said, we'll sort you out with the residency situation, assuming that you're alive. They'll probably use them in the front lines. That and the occupation plan of Lebanon. These were the things that I wanted to share with you. And the first thing, we're going to begin with the Ansarullah video that they shared on their website when it comes to the launching of the missile. Let me share that with you quickly. And then we will, of course, speak about, we've heard a lot of talk about Russia sending them the technology or Iran. And interestingly enough, the Iranian president said, we have hypersonic missiles, but we don't have that missile. We don't have that missile that Ansarullah have. Saying that they have missiles that are more sophisticated than us, Ansarullah. But let's watch that video. So here we go. Okay. No. This was the video that they shared. So, hypersonic, called Palestine 2 Hypersonic Missile, 2,150 kilometer range, solid fuel, 2-stage, it can be easily hidden, and according to them, it can reach Mach 16 speed, meaning 16 times the speed of sound. Although the recorded speed, some people said 10,000, some people said 13,000 kilometers. And it has lots of capabilities to go beyond every advanced air defense system that we have today, including the Iron Dome. Not sure why they said the Iron Dome, because the Iron Dome is the last thing that this would that would intercept this. But usually it'll start off with Arrow, which is the hypersonic exo-atmospheric air defense systems, then David Sling, and then the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome would probably intercept some of the parts, by the way, not the actual missile. The Iron Dome has no chance. But saying that, the actual Arrow had no chance. Arrow had no chance against this. Reports said that Israel launched over 20 missiles to intercept it, and they couldn't. They have this Palestinian kufi style on it and flag. It looks like it's made by them. I mean, look at it at this here. You know, it's not like completely refined in terms of shape and what have you. It looks like they actually developed this, and you know, the people who are saying, "Oh no, it's the Russians who sent it to them" or whatever. Maybe they help with some technology, but this looks like it's made by them. Look at the parts, not just the, you know, painting and what have you. And midday, not in the night or whatever. So someone wanted to kind of see it or whatever.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والله أشد بأسا وأشد تنكيلا تنفيذا لما وعد به السيد القائد عبد الملك بدر الدين الحوثي. سيقوم المجاهدون في القوة الصاروخية اليمنية بإطلاق صاروخ فرد صوتي لوح فلسطين 2 وبالله التوفيق.
الله أكبر. الموت لأمريكا، الموت لإسرائيل، اللعنة على اليهود، النصر لإسرائيل.
So that was their missile that they sent, that they launched yesterday on Saturday. They had more images of it. So they waited for today to kind of release these images. Now, when it comes to the missile, like I said, clearly you're talking about a Yemeni missile. You're not talking about something that was sent to them. I mean, look at this here. Clearly they made it. They made it, and they have the technology and they have the capacity to develop missiles. Of course, with some assistance from countries, you know, undeniably they will have some sort of assistance. But clearly they're making their own missiles and they are launching them at Israel. Now, yesterday they said it was like a test where we're studying the capabilities of Israel when it comes to defense. And clearly it was a success. Like I said, in Israel, we had reports that they had 20 missiles launched to intercept it. If they were 20 launched to intercept it when it was above the atmosphere, right? Then you're talking about the Arrow. So Israel spent at least 80 million, minimum, 80 to 100 million dollars trying to intercept it. And then it landed. It landed in a place that seemed like an electric grid or something that's in development. Israel was very shady about where it landed. They did not want to share a lot of information about that. But the fact of the matter is, they failed. They failed in intercepting it. We had lots of responses. Some of these responses that came from Israel saying that, well, we have no hope now. We have no hope. We have these missiles. The army is without guidance. They don't know where they're going exactly. They don't know what they're doing. And we've been going on this war for 11 months. And we're being attacked by so many fronts with no response. And now Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to have this new type of government. There are talks between him and a previous member of his Likud party called Gideon Sa'ar. And there are thoughts or, attempts to place him instead of Yoav Gallant. Nothing has been finalized yet, but these are the talks that are happening now. He doesn't want a big coalition. Some people are saying, some people are attempting to have a big coalition. He doesn't want that. But we also spoke about the reports coming from Israel a couple of days ago, try and take him down. we still had no results when it comes to that. But after this missile attack, he's been threatening and warning, and Yemen in return have been saying that we're ready for any Israeli attack, and we're also ready to respond in a harsher manner. This is just the beginning. We had statements coming out from them saying this is just the beginning. We are continuing, and we will not stop until this genocide in Gaza stops and the siege is lifted off Gaza. We had Yahya Sinwar sending them a message as well. Yahya Sinwar, he sent a message to Ansarullah in Yemen, congratulating them, supporting them, and telling them that we will continue, right? We will continue up until we wipe off the occupation. Sinwar, in his first couple of messages as the political bureau leader of Hamas, he's having a really harsh tone, a very strong tone when it comes to Israel. You know, you're not talking about, firstly, he's not mentioning the negotiations, by the way. He's not mentioning a solution with Israel. He's only mentioning wiping them off, establishing the state of Palestine, and liberating Jerusalem. He thanked Ansarullah group for their sincere affection and strong will that we saw on the ground in their messages and in their messages. Al-Houthi also addressed the message saying, I congratulate your missiles on reaching the depth of the Zionist entity. Excuse me, that was from Sinwar to him as well. Bypassing the layers of defense and interception systems, stressing that these operations restore the glow of the battle of the flood of Al-Aqsa, or Al-Aqsa flood, and its impact at the heart of Tel Aviv. Saying that these are strong messages to Israel, and the plans of containment and neutralization have failed. And the impact of the support fronts was taking a more effective and influential direction in deciding the battle. Noting that the combination of our efforts with the resistance in Yemen, Lebanon, and Iraq will defeat the enemy by expelling them from our homeland, God willing. And he also spoke about the situation in the Gaza Strip. He said that the people in Gaza are subjected to a genocide, a siege, and starvation, which requires the nation to support them. And with regards to the situation of the resistance, like many people are saying, well, how are they surviving 1 year on, and Israel has all of this destruction and caused so much damage in Gaza? So he said the news and information published by the enemy comes within the framework of psychological warfare. Sinwar is saying that. When they talk about defeating the resistance and taking the resistance down, and he also threatened, again, he's not just clarifying what's happening, he's threatening, he's increasing the rate. He said, we will break the enemy's political will as we broke its military will. There are lots of talks about Israel trying to obtain political results where they failed militarily. And a very consistent theme that we're hearing from the resistance fronts is, you will not achieve in politics what you haven't achieved by war. So far, Yahya Sinwar, he sent 3 messages. 1 to congratulate the Algerian president, 1 to the Secretary General of Hezbollah, and 1 to Ansarullah in Yemen. And again, there was a general message, but again, we haven't had all of the clarification when it comes to that. It was supposed to be for the Palestinian people and the people of the world to elaborate what's happening. It might be like a short message. I'm not sure if it will be video recorded. It was just going to be a written statement that's going to be published by the media. So lots of talk about this missile. Ansarullah are publishing, and Israel, Netanyahu just threatening. Clearly they had no answer to it. Now the resistance fronts they know more about Israel's weaknesses. They know the weak points of the air defense systems. And again, you're talking about the most advanced air defense system, and you're not talking just about Israel, you're talking about the US. The US and every other country supporting Israel when it comes to interception. And clearly, when it comes to the hypersonic missiles, it doesn't appear like they have an answer, because all of the hypersonic missiles that Iran launched at Israel landed. However, these came after the 300 drones approximately. So Iran used the strategy of drones, then hypersonics. But Ansarullah with this, they just sent one hypersonic missile to check if we send one hypersonic missile with this capability, with this speed, what will they do? But they will do nothing, meaning that they clearly don't have an answer. And we're talking about capabilities almost similar to the Kinjal missile that Russia has, Russia obtains, and that they introduced in 2018 alongside a list of kind of mega weapons, they called it at the time, strategic weapons that no one has an answer to, including Russia, by the way. And one of them was the Kinjal missile, and some other gliding like missiles, extremely large gliding UAVs or missiles. Some people call them missiles, some people call them gliding UAVs because of the size, that they used once or twice, I think, in Ukraine, and we haven't seen these being intercepted. So you're talking about a serious development here, and these people are studying where things are going. That's the first part. Secondly, Israel is talking now about occupation of Lebanon. So we had a group a couple of months ago that we spoke about in Israel, calling for settlements in South Lebanon and coming up with these biblical quotes that, oh yeah, the land of Lebanon is holy to us as well. It started to be holy, South Lebanon. South Lebanon is holy, and they wanted to settle there. They had a couple of protests in Israel. And of course, these people are a front to the general strategy of Israel, like the squatting establishment is in the West Bank. People tell you that. Some people in Israel criticize them, what have you. These people represent the strategy of Israel, a neo-colonialist expansionist entity, a neo-colonialist expansionist, violent, illegal entity. Now they're talking about occupying a security line. They want to occupy a security line in Lebanon. What's that security line? Okay. This is the security line very briefly. So if you see here, these are the borders between Israel and Lebanon. These are the Shib'a farms. They are still in dispute between Israel and Lebanon and Syria, by the way. However, Israel still has control in Shib'a farms, right? Some people in Lebanon who are not big fans of Hezbollah, they've been saying, well, that's a Syrian thing, so let Syria and Israel deal with it. But from Hezbollah and the Lebanese resistance perspective is, well, no, we will deal with it with Syria, but we have a right to fight Israel so long as these Shib'a farms are occupied, because they're close to the Golan Heights. But when we talk about the security line that Israel wants to occupy, we're talking about a short radius alongside the borders here inside of Lebanon. They occupied it before. They call the Sharit al-Hududi, or the border line. They were expelled from it in the year 2000 by Hezbollah and the Lebanese resistance. After, of course, they were expelled from areas all across South Lebanon. They were almost in Beirut. Now, ideally, this is where Israel wants Hezbollah to retreat to. This is called the Litani River. It's approximately 40 kilometers away from Israel. Israel has always been asking Lebanon and everyone that Hezbollah, listen, you need to retreat. You need to go over there. Why? Well, because we don't like you, and we're entitled to tell you what to do. That's we want you out of here. That's obviously not going to happen. As a matter of fact, Hezbollah, a report said that Hezbollah told the Israelis in indirect messages, if you want Hezbollah to go 10 kilometers in, the IDF needs to go 10 kilometers in Israel too. So they're not entitled to tell us where to go, and if they want us to withdraw, let them withdraw. And Hezbollah is, of course, present across all of these areas here. Israel is saying we want to occupy this line here. So far, they had 3 invasion attempts in Lebanon. They had invasion attempts across the direct lines here, and 1 invasion attempt closer to this area. They thought that this was this area included small soft spots, weak points for Hezbollah. So they tried to invade within a civilian population. However, they failed. And they failed with the 2 operations that they had on the other parts of Lebanon. So they sent their elite units, and some reports said that they were part of Golani. Golani is the brigade with the most experience in Lebanon. It's called Golani in reference to the Golan Heights, by the way. And it was formed shortly after the formation of the IDF. They, of course, had groups of the Zionist militias that were there before 1948, and they were one of the oldest brigades in Israel, and they had the most experience in Lebanon, including in 1982 and in 2000 and also in 2006. But they failed. They failed with these. Previously they failed because they were expelled. Then they failed with the recent invasion attempts because all of them were taken down. Hezbollah reported that they took down all of the invading forces, special elite units from Israel, and that they were either killed or wounded, including in the areas that Israel considered to be soft spots for Hezbollah. If they failed with these 2 attempts, if we had what was labeled as the tank or Merkava massacres in Lebanon, that's back in 2006, how is Israel going to do that? Really, I have no explanation for that, to be fair with you. They think that they can potentially, remove some mines of certain areas, but then again, everywhere near the border is very dangerous territory. Why? Because Hezbollah, what they used to conduct inside of Lebanon previously, they are conducting it inside of Israel. So all of the cornets, all of the attacks on tanks, all of the heat-guided missiles, they're using it from Lebanon on Israel now. They're not waiting for them to come in. If you'll have a tank here on one of the hills trying to hide behind a tree or whatever, Hezbollah will have a camera and they would launch a missile at them and take them down. How are they planning to do that? I'm not sure. Is it another PR stunt from Netanyahu? Perhaps. It doesn't look like they have the capacity to do that, especially with the recent report. And that's the final thing that I wanted to talk about before I open the space up for all of you, about them trying to offer the African asylum seekers, people crossing all of these routes, dangerous routes to come to Israel, to come to other countries too, trying to tell them, firstly, they're very racist with them, like they are racist with everyone. And we had many statements previously from people in the Israeli government, the state is not for black people and this and that. Very racist tone, which is very normal. But now they are trying to use them. Use them how? Well, come join the army and we will give you a residence status. We will not give you an Israeli citizenship, but we will deal with your settlement issue. So come and fight. And if you don't die, and we hope you do, this is what Israel says, of course, if you won't die, but we will send you to the most dangerous places to fill up the cannon fodder, use you as cannon fodder like we use our own people, who we act like we care about. if you don't die, but we will make sure that most of you do. That's the concept of Israel. You might get something. Yeah, you might get something. Okay, that's desperation. You're talking about people who are not trained, who don't have any experience, who are foreign to the land, who are not foreign to the land. You know, all of them are foreign to the land, but I spent a couple of decades here, the other ones. But people who don't know the land, they don't know the geography, nothing, who they're fighting, who they're not fighting. What? The Israelis who went to Gaza, they were not trained. They were not trained to fight in destroyed civilian buildings, destroyed urban warfare. They were trained on urban warfare. Urban warfare is intact buildings. But no one in Israel was trained on destroyed urban warfare. So how are you going to expect these people? What does that show you? Desperation and grave failure, and some of them might, of course, take that because, listen, these people who come, they're desperate, of course. You know, people want to live. People want every opportunity to kind of have any sort of prospect for a livelihood or whatever. But will they succeed in the grand scheme of things? No. It's a short-lived thing. They could probably make up some numbers that they are missing. But in the long run, it's not going to work. Why? Well, because it hasn't worked with your elite units, and it hasn't worked with the level of people fleeing from Israel and running away from the war. And it's not going to work with Benjamin Netanyahu's son in Miami. These were the main things that I wanted to share with you. Let me open the space up for all of you, see if you have any questions or comments. And if you wouldn't mind highlighting them for me. And apologies in advance if I missed some of them, by the way. Let's go up for a bit. Sailor Jerry Swallow, thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. Kirk, I'm in winter gear, non-intentional. Yeah, it's getting chillier bit by bit. All right. Okay, we've had a long list during the video that I presented earlier on. Kate, USA said they are still working on a ceasefire agreement with Qatar and Egypt. Who was sent to Egypt? Blinking, the Jew, the weapon salesman, every time. The Jews in Israel, more deaths, more toys. Well, the United States is working on a ceasefire as an act. It's a theater. They are not really genuine about having a ceasefire. If they wanted a ceasefire genuinely, they would use their leverage to have a ceasefire. And that leverage is to stop arming Israel, is to stop sending money to Israel. That's the leverage. They're not using that. They're saying that we have positive vibes, and they were asking them to, and they were hoping that they don't use the 1 or 2 or 3 or 1 million ton bombs that we send them, but they're still sending them. And then with Blinken, you're mentioning Blinken and the fact that he's Jewish. Well, he highlighted that when he came to the region. He came and he spoke with the Jews. He said, I come here as a Jewish person. I come here as a Jew. Interesting. What do you mean you come here as a Jew? Why are you even saying that? You're coming to Israel. Israel is a state. We don't care what it is, so long as it's committing a genocide. Israel is committing a genocide. Why are you saying that I'm coming as a Jew? You see, the United States has been using this victimhood card alongside Israel and the weaponization of what they label falsely as anti-Semitism. since 1967. Norman Finkelstein, who comes from a family of Holocaust survivors, spoke about that in depth. I recommend you listen to him when it comes to the weaponization of anti-Semitism before and post 1967, when the United States started to realize the level of strategic power Israel has for them. So he's coming to act saying that I'm a Jew, as in for hoping that to sympathize with him or something. So he met with the Egyptian president at the time. The Egyptian president told him, Mr. Blinken, we have a Jewish community here in Cairo. And, you know, we had the Jewish community for a very long time. And there were no problems before for hundreds of years. So what are you talking about exactly? What, the fact that you're a Jew, does that enable you to allow Israel to commit a genocide? Right? So, yeah. And with regards to weapon salesmen, all of them are salesmen. All of them are salesmen for the people who buy them. When you talk about almost $1 billion in political campaign money these people get, hundreds of millions, they need to serve the people who pay them, whether it's the military industrial complex, whether it's big corporations. So it's not surprising. And yes, the United States, like I said, they are just acting when it comes to the ceasefire agreement. And don't forget that they're also concerned about the elections. They want to show that, you know, we are attempting to have some sort of a ceasefire, but it's not working. Why? Because Hamas, you know, these Hamas people and the bad people, they always don't talk. And Dr. X, thank you. And great work, by the way. Thank you so much, my friend. Farhad is saying, have you heard the US has passed a bill of $1.6 billion to media stop propaganda about China? Weaklings. Well, listen, we don't have to hear that to know what they do when it comes to propaganda about China. The irony here is that they have been spreading propaganda about China when they are the biggest consumer of Chinese goods. That's number one. Secondly, China has its own ports in the United States, managed and controlled by China. So in many ways, the United States has no sovereignty over these ports when it comes to China. They are the biggest country in debt for China. They need China. Some of their big corporations, they operate in China. But they want this propaganda against them, and they talk about, you know, Chinese interference sometimes and Russian interference. And okay, well, what about the lobby, the lobby? What about the Zionist lobby in the US? What about all of the Zionist lobbies? Well, what about AIPAC, right? No, these people they can operate freely. And we won't talk about how they not only influence the elections, how they bribe politicians, blackmail them through rape groups, Epstein's and what have you, and offer them millions to vote in a certain way or not vote in a certain way. And they keep spending that money. And by the way, that's primarily because the United States is seeing the end of its hegemony coming, and they want to delay that as much as possible. So China has to be the enemy. And again, you know, you talk about a Chinese threat. Well, you're in the South China Sea sitting there with your aircraft carriers, right? And then you complain about a Chinese jet flying next to you. Oh no, they're intimidating us. What are you doing there? So imagine Chinese warship or aircraft or an aircraft carrier or Russian one off the coasts of, I don't know, Florida or California or what have you, sitting there and complaining about American jets coming to. Well, what is that logic? Samax Legend Mahmoud, do you think about the UK spy flights over Palestine? People in the UK are sick of the UK politicians. Oh, Tell me something new. The Zios have control over both parties now. Yeah, I mean, they've had control for a long time. They've had infiltration. As a matter of fact, these control groups have been exposed in previous reports. Al Jazeera did a documentary with an undercover journalist in 2018 when they had this anti-Semitism campaign against Jeremy Corbyn. Yet no action has been taken, and the newspapers didn't treat it as if it's anything. Why? Because they're controlled by them too. But I wouldn't say they have the same control as they do. Look, it's a massive control. The Zionist idea came to life from Britain. Talking about the Balfour Declaration, the British mandate handed it to the Zionists, although they killed them and killed their troops. And ask anyone who fought in British mandate Palestine and Britain and listen to what they have to tell you about these Zionists who used to kill them. But they have less control than the United States. They have less control than the United States. And although, again, Keir Starmer had some appalling, abhorrent positions, and he still does. But this man, he legitimized the cutting off of oil and water of the people in Gaza. But saying that, and now Israel is not very happy. They're not very happy. They're not very happy. And some of their lobbies here are complaining. You can hear it from their tones. Oh no, they're not allowing 30 weapons to go for us. Why? And this and that. They cut off, they did not renew 30 licenses because apparently to the British government, they were about to be used in Gaza, which at the time I even said it's a good move. It's a good move, but it's not enough. You need to cut everything off them, If you're talking about Russia and you're doing that with Russia, what's preventing you from doing that with Israel? It's the same concept. Why the double standards? Why the hypocrisy, right? Although there's no comparison between the intended genocide in Gaza and Russia and Ukraine, by the way. So there are certain actions in the UK that Israel is not very happy with. They, of course, do have certain things that they're not very happy with in the US too, but nowhere near. In the US, the fact that Israel is still standing is the US. Okay, let's see if we have anything else. Helen is saying, did you see Israel posted we can test arrest warrant for Netanyahu approved by the IC? They removed it almost immediately. Sinwar including the arrest warrant. No, I didn't see that post actually, but yes, Sinwar is included, and that shows how flawed it is. Why? Because it's putting the criminal, the occupier, the man and country conducting a genocide against occupied people in the same box with the occupied, the people who are going through the genocide, and the people who are fighting in accordance to international law. It's absurd. And even with that, and the IC prosecutor, Karim Khan, he was trying to probably appease to let this pass because he had a lot of pressure, apparently had death threats against him. But again, does he know international law? Karim Khan, does he know international law? If he knows international law, how can you compare an occupier with the occupied? How can you compare the aggressor with the oppressed? How can you take that action when you already have UN resolutions giving the Palestinian people the right to fight for their liberty because they are under occupation? How? And again, look at what they're doing in Ukraine. Western countries are legitimizing Ukrainian aggression inside Russian territory, saying that in international law, it is legitimate for a country under attack to attack its occupier. Well, why are you not using the same argument with Hamas? Why are you not using the same argument with the Palestinian resistance on the 7th of October? And you immediately bought and endorsed the propaganda that came from Israel that was later debunked, and not very much later, quite soon. Why the double standards? Why the hypocrisy? And I don't see no progress, to be fair, when it comes to the arrest warrants, because this man has been threatened. They threatened him with his life. As a matter of fact, congressmen sent him a letter signed by them, Mitchell and this crew. And Track APAC already said how much it cost them, how much they were rewarded for sending that letter, 6.2 million or something like that. By who? By the Zionist lobby in the United States. It's a global mafia. It's a global cartel. Hell, but the cartels are probably more merciful than them. Intimidating the ICC prosecutor? What is that? Have you no regard for international law? Again, if we have international law implemented, that would be great. Do you know why? Because the UN has the Declaration of Universal Human Rights. If the Declaration of Universal Human Rights that protect people's safety, livelihood, security, food, health, place to live, long list. Why is that not implemented? If you have that, you wouldn't have these problems. But again, these laws are ink on paper, and the international law is intended to be a stick that they bash the countries that they don't like with, not a system that is there to be truly implemented on everyone. Otherwise, how did the big genocidal maniacs get away with it? How did the US and NATO get away with all of their crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan and before that? How did they get away with their crime? It's because they use these international laws for their favor. If we are indeed governed by international law and this international law was implemented equally, we would have been in a wonderful world. Well, great, oof. But we're not. We live in a world that is not run by law, nor morals, nor values. It's run by power. It's run by power, and it only changes through power. The Phil guy, Salam, yes, I did discuss, if you go back to the beginning of the live or just a few minutes back, if you watch this recorded, I spoke about the African asylum seekers being used as slave labor by the IDF, yes. And I spoke about, the fact that they could potentially have limited success with that, but in the grand scheme of things, it will not make a change when it comes to the war in general. Bill Nye, the highest guy. Germany lost in World War II, but fascism won. Do you agree? Oh no, Germany didn't lose. Germany became the West. That's what happened. Why did they take and collaborate with so many ex-people in the Nazi regime? When we had East Germany and West Germany, what was West Germany made out of? Who ran the bureaucracy of Germany? and who were supported by the US and by the UK and by West Europe. Who were they? They were the Nazis. They changed some of the heads, but the people in the bureaucracy were Nazis. Who gave the technology to the US? The Nazis did. The Soviet Union supported East Germany because the Soviets were the biggest contributor in defeating the Nazis at the time, by the way. And up until the last minute, up until like the unification of Germany, Western countries were supporting Nazis, and they still do. They embrace them. They behave like them. So, I mean, again, you know, World War II, you need to read through everything again, this whole narrative that they sent to the world, and it's full of questionable things. And again, you know, the powerful, you know, history is written by the powerful, by the victor. So you need to understand that. And we need to see which sources are giving us this information. Some people who fight for Zelensky, Nazis, not Nazis by like propaganda. Some of the people who fight for Zelensky are Nazis. They raise Nazi flags and they believe in this whole supremacy thing. And Western countries support them. They don't just support them, they train them in the West. And they send their armies and they send them arms. So everything needs to be looked into thoroughly. Universo Energy, thank you for that. He said, will Iran satellite launch do some good? Look, Iran is launching satellites for their own purposes. They want to advance as a country. They want to be economically independent and strong and continue to have this strategic growth that they're having regionally and globally, and they are doing that successfully. Western countries try to stunt that to a very large extent, led by the United States and by Israel, by the way. But that really didn't work. It didn't work. And Iran is proving time after time that it's a force to be reckoned with. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, and from my current observation, I think Iran at the moment probably holds number one in terms of strategic influence in the Middle East. If they are able to do all of this, if they are able to support openly so many movements that fight Israel, which is an American colony now here, by technical definition, really, by the actual implementation, then they are very powerful and they have a lot of leverage. And they also have their reasons for this delay thing, right? They're seeing what's happening. And again, they don't want to lose what they've built in the past several decades. So I'm sure it'll do good for Iran. And again, you know, these countries, they need to also be independent from all of this technology led by the United States primarily, because, well, we saw how the United States uses technology, haven't we? You know, Julian Assange and Edward Snowden told us. Okay. IG to me, thank you so much for that. And Samax Legend, did you see Professor Morandi destroy Piers Morgan on his show, Total Humiliation? I actually haven't seen that. I've seen a couple of snippets maybe, but I could imagine how that went, really. Piers Morgan, I don't know. I don't know how, you know, although he changed his tone slightly, but I still don't trust the man. I don't trust anyone who tried to remotely justify genocide or remotely support a genocidal entity. But it's because they're faced with logic. And Professor Marandi, you know, he wasn't the first one. We had many people who did a good job. Diana's saying with all the sanctions placed on Iran over the years, they still become powerful. Well, you see, that's the thing. I think they benefited more than they lost when it comes to sanctions, because by preventing them from the technology that they need, they forced them to create their own technology. And when a country or anyone really is forced to go through something, this developmental stage, whether you take it at a state level or a personal level, you know the process. And you cannot buy the process of learning unless you go through it. So the United States and the sanctions that are imposed on Iran ever since the Islamic Revolution in 1979 only made Iran stronger. Look at the blockade in Gaza. They've had a blockade since 2007, 2006, 2007. Ever since Hamas won democratically, like, what does that tell you? Jimmy Carter was there, said that that's the most democratic election in the Arab history. But whenever someone wins democratically and they're not, you know, they don't want to kneel down to the masters, right? Oh no, they blockade them. Okay. Since they had the blockade, you had people in Gaza starting to produce engines and technology and lots of stuff. So they thought they would kind of take them down as a way to put pressure on them to submit to the will of the superpower in the form of the United States and follow its economic way, follow its political way, be a slave to it geopolitically as well. But Iran always resisted that. And they paid heavily. They paid with wars. They paid with facing terror, genuine terror, the real one, you know. They faced with so many sanctions. But that made them, again, that made them more creative. And that also gave them other opportunities. And if it wasn't for these sanctions, if it wasn't for this arrogant approach, we wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't have been here. And we will wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. I hope I added some beneficial information for you in this live stream. I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. Apart from that, stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much for everyone who participated. Sorry if I missed some of your comments. Of course, we'll miss some of them in the live stream. Thank you so much for everyone who sent supers. IG to me, Universo Energy, Dr. X and Sale, Jerry Swallow. Stay blessed, take care, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone.